The state government may have breached privacy laws by tracking the movements of protesters, according to Liberty Victoria. The government says the surveillance was justified because it had evidence of serious threats to the construction of the North-South pipeline and to those working on it. But one prominent protester who was under surveillance for 2 years denies there was ever any intention of violence. She's asked the Privacy Commissioner to investigate if the powers have been misused. Cheryl Hall with that story.
They had monitored me taking photos along the Melbourne Highway, that they had tailed me in my car, and I knew they had done that because I had been out there taking photos of construction site, and I'd seen a car, every time I pulled up it would stop 30 yards behind me. I'd move off it and start again.
Jan Beer, a 62-year-old farmer and spokeswoman for Plug the Pipe, closely watched the construction of the North-South pipeline. She's amazed at how closely she was being watched.
I was gobsmacked at the number of documents, that there were 102 documents, of which 88 they allowed me to have. They withheld some of them. I don't know why they withheld them. Maybe that was too damning.
Documents released under the Freedom of Information Act reveal her movements were recorded and regularly reported, not by the police, but by employees of Melbourne Water.
There were weekly reports, monthly reports, incident managed reports, videotapes. All they had to do was go and ask the local police sergeant, who I've known for nearly 20 years, do we need to worry about this person? Is she a threat? Is she a terrorist? And I know very well what the answer would be. Don't be ridiculous.
But the state government is unapologetic.
Melbourne Water were required to safeguard Pipeline Alliance workers, safeguard the community in the pipeline corridor area, and safeguard the delivery of this project. Plug the Pipeline protesters threatened to invade the Premier's property. In another instance, a pipeline worker swerved their vehicle at a pipeline protester, swerved their car at a pipeline worker, hit them, had to be charged, and that charge was upheld by Victoria Police. In one instance, Honourable Speaker, a Molotov cocktail was thrown at the Glenburn facility office, and again, police had to be notified.
Did you or anyone else throw a Molotov cocktail?
No, and I don't know where that came from or whether it was actually an incident.
Did you ever threaten to blow up the pipeline or sabotage it in any way?
Never. What Mr Holding is saying is ridiculous. The government can sling as much mud as they like, but I think it's been clearly seen on TV that the majority of our protesters have been middle-aged, mums and dads, grandparents. Our protests have always been peaceful.
What are you doing? You filming me? If you're filming me, then you need to stop. You can't film me. Because can I just ask what the reason that you guys are here for?
Victoria's other major water project, the $3 billion desalination plant at Kilcunda in Gippsland, is also under tight security. It's the subject of another memorandum of understanding that gives police, the Department of Sustainability and Environment, and the company building it the right to collect information on protesters.
No desal! No desal!
Many of those protesters have applied through Freedom of Information to find out if they've also been under surveillance like Jan Beer.
I know Jan personally. I know her to be a thoroughly decent and honourable citizen. I mean, she's done nothing more than the rest of us, of speak up on a really important issue. And to hear that she's been spied on is absolutely beyond expectation.
Like the pipeline protesters, the desalination protesters say they are a group of harmless, middle-aged locals.
I was a university student years ago, but not involved in any radical things. No police record. One speeding fine years ago.
That's the key.
I mean, I've got workers living across the road from me. Are they looking through their curtains at me?
Memorandums of understanding between the police and other parties are not uncommon, but few are believed to grant the spying powers given to Melbourne Water, Aquashore and the Department of Sustainability and Environment. Even then, the powers used against Jan Beer come with conditions.
Well, it really depends on whether there's a reasonable belief or reasonable grounds to suspect that she might have been engaged in illegal or unlawful or violent activities. Now, the real issue is who's telling the truth there. If the government's correct about that, and if they have proper information and a proper basis to believe that there's a threat of violence and other unlawful activities, they would be entitled to collect the information.
But if no charges have been laid and no one has been arrested for those offences, is it valid?
Well, it does tend to undermine the case that the government is making, yes.
No one has been charged over the alleged incident involving a Molotov cocktail. The only charges laid against any of the protesters, against the pipeline or the desalination plant, are minor trespass counts.
So they may have breached privacy laws?
Oh, quite possibly, yes. They're subject to the Information Privacy Act, which says that they may only collect personal information if it's necessary for the performance of their functions. There's no real justification just to ensure that major government projects, understand they're important to the government, but to be snooping on relatively harmless activities of people opposed to these projects, just to ensure the projects go through, I don't think is justifiable.
Jan Beer has asked the Privacy Commissioner to investigate her case, but she thinks her chances of success are as good as stopping the pipeline.
I'm very angry that a government, an elected government in the state of Victoria, will do such a thing. I thought I lived in a democracy, not in a dictatorship.